Morning show brought to you by Palm Casual, palmcasual.com, the best outdoor furniture that money can buy here in South Carolina. Sorry we're a little late, Mr. Thorne, but always glad to have you. Good morning, my friend.
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing this morning?
Good. Doing just fine. Hey, look, man, let's dive into it here. Gamecocks win this weekend. The conversation is always going to be Lenore Sellers. We know that, but personally, I believe the stars of the show were up front on the defensive side of the football. Give us your evaluation of their seemingly maybe a breakout game for the defensive front.
Yeah, man, it looked like the first time where the defense looked like they were in swarm and attack mode. Poor Cutter. He's gonna remember this game forever for the worst reasons possible. Like he's gonna be an old man talking about his first start in the SEC on the road was at that terrible place, Willie Bright, because we beat him up, man, and it was fun to watch. Kind of seeing them get ping pong from player to player and getting the pressure that they had on them. It was really fun to watch. There was reminiscent of the type of swarming that you saw from last year's defensive line.
Yeah, good news for Cutter. He gets to get out of the hostile environment in Columbia and go to lowly old Georgia next week. So they do play at noon. Will be a little bit different. Yeah, look, Dylan Stewart, the highest graded defensive lineman this week in college football per PFF at 90.4. Let's talk about Dylan for a second. Preston, he certainly had some eye-popping moments this past weekend. Came out of nowhere to annihilate that kid at the end of the first half. I think they'll maybe rethink that whole let's just try to pitch this thing around and score play moving forward. But I want to be, look, I think we calling a spade is right. He had a couple of plays that got behind him that were caught on tape that they probably didn't go very well yesterday in the film room, Mr. Thorne. He's had some frustrating moments this year. Obviously, he's been held a bunch and things of that nature, but having a game like that where he finally got to make some solid contact with the quarterback and others, what do you think that does for him?
I mean, I don't think he lacks any confidence, so, I don't think that's the particular issue. But you're right. I think the best thing for him is that there's still a lot to improve on. You can't turn on that. You can't say that he's arrived. Just from my naked eye, I only watched the game twice. I watched it once live, and then I went back and I did a little rewatch. There were still opportunities where Dylan still struggles setting the edge. He still struggles at times with the reach blocks and different type of technique things. He's obviously a supreme athlete, so there's always more to work on. And I'm sure that's what Sterling is telling him. Like, hey, you're great, obviously, but you can still take your game to the next level, and that's fun for him.
Professor
Mike,
Thorne,
what you got?
Professor Thorne, question. I always try to learn something on these segments. Tell me what a reach block is.
Yeah, so a reach block is usually when you're at the defensive end position and the offensive line is trying to reach around you. Usually it's on like one of those stretch type of plays or a zone play, and they're just trying to position so that they cut you off from the edge of where you're trying to go. My guy Strick will probably be able to in depth tell what they're trying to do.
So why do you think he struggles with that?
That's a good question. I honestly, this is my no knowledge of him or anything like that. I think he struggles with that because he's too good of an athlete. For instance, the play that he made going on towards the end zone, he was reached on that play. But he's such a good athlete that sometimes he can go underneath the block or go around the block and still make the play, which for him, he can do that now, but will he be able to do that in the future? Maybe. But sometimes that's not best for the defense because when you go around the block, you don't set the edge, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes he's just such a great athlete that he feels like, why should I have to do this the hard way when I can do it the easy way and just make a play right now? And I think that's something that a lot of great athletes have to work on.
Mm-hmm. The other edge position, Brian Thomas had a big game, had a couple of sacks in there. I mean, look, man, it's nice to have a game where you can call all their names, isn't it? I mean, I thought Jatius Gear had a pretty good ball game. Wasn't it awesome to see Desmond Umeozulu get in there and knock the quarterback on his rear end and force that ball up in the air that Cisse picked off? I mean, they try to rotate him in as much as they can. Don't worry, we're going to get to the tackles. We're going to get there. But, I mean, it was nice to see these edge guys not only be able to play, but perform and affect big plays in the ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you start with, Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't say this in a disparaging way because sometimes it could be construed at that, but he's such an effort pass rusher. He wins on his second move very frequently. Sometimes if you don't win on the first move, he just keeps rushing and keeps going and keeps playing, and eventually he ends up putting pressure on the quarterback. And that's something that is the skill that everybody does not have, because a lot of times once they don't get their first move, they kind of just get into a pushing fight between the two. So his effort is amazing. Des Yu, he got that hit, and if you notice, he did the whole I'm falling on him, but I'm not putting my arms on him, so I don't get the extra penalty. I thought that was really cool because I know it's a new age thing, and we all have to accept it.
I know.
But to me that showed, one, that they're coaching that, and two, that he's taking coaching well. So I thought that was really, really exciting to see. And obviously, JT, I know, how big do you think his eyes were when he saw that ball laying there? Like, I'm going to pick this up and score. So that was really cool to see those guys. And again, I just think that was one of the first times this year you saw them sort of having fun. Like, we know we're going to get a chance to get to the quarterback, use all these cool pass rush moves that we've learned, and just go out there and get after it.
That's a great point. That's a word that gets forgotten about sometimes when you lose a couple of games. And these guys, you're right on gear. How many times have we seen it in our lifetime, where a defensive lineman or an edge guy or something like that sees ball on the ground and he's this is my chance, and then he drops it. You know what I mean? Trips over.
Jamie, I bring up this play every time the situation comes up. JV football against Stratford on a Thursday night. I was wide open. The ball was laying there. I kicked it out of bounds, Jamie. I kicked it out of bounds. And not only that, I kicked it out of bounds. They recovered, or they got the ball back. They ended up kicking a field goal and they won the game. I'll never not think about that fateful Thursday night in 1997 or whatever year that was.
Well, if you were on JV, Coach McKissick wasn't coaching you, but was he watching the game, and what did he say?
Back then he probably didn't even know my name back then. It was like, hey, you kid, do better next time or whatever the case. Yeah, I think about that play all the time, man.
Yo, 94. All right. Speaking of the interior guys, once again, Dindy was able to go, and he looked good. He's looked good every game. I don't know if I feel like he's been. I guess I'd have to go back and look at the snap count. I think Hale McGranahan puts that up, and I haven't checked it this week. But I do feel like he's been playing a little bit more. I know they were kind of trying to be careful with him this week with getting healthy, but I thought Nick Barrett played really well too. Not to discount Monkel, Troy Pikes, all those guys got in there and played well. But Preston, and I do believe that this offense, which we're going to get to in a minute, is making some baby steps towards getting in the right direction here. But whether you do or whether you don't, this football team, regardless of that, was going to have to play well on defense. You can't win in the SEC without defense, period, the end. And you can't win in the SEC without a defensive front that's really good. We know that. We've seen this story around here thousands and thousands of times, it feels like. So if these guys are getting into their groove, in my opinion, and they force turnovers and they score on defense and all these extracurriculars that are out there, if these guys are getting in their groove, starting with this group here, they're going to keep South Carolina in the ball games that they play in. They're going to give them opportunities, and then we'll have that conversation next about the offense.
Yeah, those interior guys, they ended up, I believe Clayton ended up going to like a 5-man front where there were 3 tackles playing at one time, and so that might change the snap count. I haven't seen the snap count either, but all of those guys, especially after the first drive, it felt like Clayton made an adjustment and the team made an adjustment and essentially shut down the running game. Those guys played very tough inside. And it made me ask the number one question that you think about this, and it made me say it 2 times, is who's that? And I said that for number 90, right? He made a play, he was running, I said, oh, who's that? Haven't seen him. And that's kind of what they talk about, guys flashing sometimes when you're not necessarily, maybe they're coming in reserve role or they're playing a couple of extra snaps. And I thought that was really cool to see, and that's only going to be good for the future of the squad.
Yeah, number 90, Devontae Miles, for anybody wondering, the transfer out of
Bowling Green.
He a couple times he just made me say, what's going on here? What's up? Who's that? And I thought that was really cool because I don't know what his snap count has been for the rest of the year, but he flashed on screen on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's they like him a lot, and Devontae is I think he's a junior. I'm pretty sure he is. So they got some dudes for the future up there. Christian Ingram, the young guys, Avion Hardy. I mean, they feel like they're in a pretty good spot from a talent standpoint. All right, let's move this over to the other side of the ball here. Synopsis from you, just a general synopsis offensively, what you saw Saturday.
This was the first game that I've watched this year where it felt like we were running an offensive system as opposed to some kind of felt like, not grab bagging because it wasn't that bad, but it just felt like we were calling plays and it never really could get into a system. This week when I watched on Saturday, it felt like, I could understand what we were trying to do. Even though I'm not an offensive guy, it felt like I had an idea of what the goal was, whether it was the rollouts or the play actions into the flats, and Lenore's being a lot more aggressive. So I felt a lot more comfortable with this offense this week than I have with any of the prior weeks that we've had.
Yeah, I think Preston, when they and I'm with you there. I obviously they had some moments like they've had in every game this year where you're kind of wondering what's happening here. But I do believe when they like these plays that we saw him make, the highlight reel plays once again on Saturday, put it on his tab, right? But when he makes those plays, in my opinion, that's when he is the most comfortable in his own skin. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. I heard in his post game, he said that he was going out and being more aggressive. And to me, that just means that he's being more decisive. He's not having to think, and he's being able to be more comfortable to go out there and be the great player that we know he is. And you started to see some of those things that we got so used to on Saturday night.
Yeah, like when he makes those plays, Preston, he gives the like you said the word uncomfortable. I think that's the best word to describe a defense when you've got a quarterback who it's like, oh, we've got him. Holy crap, he's 15 yards downfield. Wait a second, there were 3 guys around him. What just happened back there? You start questioning a lot of things on how you're going to continue to defend this football team when he's able to make those plays. So, like in an odd way, regardless of what system they're running or whatever the case is, he needs to have the opportunity to be Houdini a few times a game. Don't you think?
I agree. I mean, he's the most explosive player in. We can go hyperbole here, or we can go wherever. But when that dude has the ball, everybody holds their breath.
Yeah,
and everybody's like, something can happen here, and I just feel like we need to make more opportunities for those things to happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. The run game obviously would help that too, Preston. And you can go look at the numbers and then compare it to the previous years that they played against the Mark Stoops defenses, and they're pretty good. I mean, obviously they ran it 48 times, but they ran it 16 on the final drive, which was very impressive. I don't care what the score of any game is. You hold on to the ball for 9.5 minutes, run 16 plays without throwing the football once. It's pretty good. You're doing that at will. But I thought what was the most impressive thing to me offensively, you mentioned the system and overall on Friday night, was their ability to run it into the end zone in the red zone, Preston. Like you don't, if you're not very good between the 20s and you're bumping and grinding out there a little bit, kind of trying to figure it out, and you're falling forward for a yard or two here and there, it's unfortunate. but it's tolerable. But don't you think, like, if you get inside the 10-yard line and you can jam it into the end zone, that makes you a much better football team than what you were?
Well, yeah, because now I think everybody learned their lesson maybe from Missouri. Like, hey, let's not be fancy. Let's not try and do any trickery here. Let's see if we can line up and run the ball in the end zone. And they actually did it. And that's something that's a positive move forward, because you don't want to be in the red zone resorting to all kinds of tricks and formation tricks and revert. Like, let's just line up and be able to run the ball in, whether it's with 16 or the running backs or whoever the case is. And they proved that they could do that against Kentucky.
Yeah, I what do you think about Matt Fuller?
I have no idea what was going on as far as rotations was concerned, but I did think it was interesting that when they were trying to ice the game, that he was the running back that got a majority of the carries. I don't know if that means something, if that doesn't mean anything, but I had heard a lot about Matthew Fuller, and that was the first time I got to see him with any type of rhythm or flow in the working of a ball game. So he was impressive in that case for sure.
Preston, we did as part of our Fab 5 challenge, over under on Gamecock running backs average yards per carry, 3.0, because that has been an issue all year. I thought they would hit that mark this game. I was wrong. They were, I think, 2.85 or something. But do you see progress there overall? And knowing the 5-game stretch that is ahead, how confident are you that this offense will have a solid running game moving forward?
Well, after 5 games, I think that's still to be determined, to be very honest.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe the most disappointing thing is that I would like to have seen by this point somebody step forward and take that position. And I'm not, after watching 5 games, I'm not convinced that hey Riley, see my dog in the background.
Right.
I'm not convinced that anybody has stepped up to take that spot. And I would, and I don't care who it is. I just would like somebody to do that, and I haven't seen that yet.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, and I can't remember exactly where it was in the ball game, but I felt like when Shivers came in at right tackle, Big Tree went over to left tackle, I felt most comfortable personally in watching this offensive line. They started their 4th different group in 5 games this year. Injuries obviously have had something to do with that. Poor performances had something to do with that. Now you got a couple of weeks to prepare for LSU. For whatever reason, it just felt more together up there when those guys were in there. Trevon was in there, Shed was in there, and then they had Rodney Newsom at center. I'm not necessarily ever going to ask you to like call out certain players or anything like that. You were a certain player. It's I don't know. I don't love to do it. But when you saw this offensive line, did you feel like progress was made? And is there a notable name or two that you'd mention?
So I had been wanting to see some improvement from Rodney Newsom because he was in the transfer portal, and I was wondering where he was. I assumed that when he came here as an older player, that he was coming to start, and I was disappointed that he wasn't starting. I didn't know whether that was on him, whether that meant that he hadn't performed to the level that he thought, or maybe the younger guys had progressed faster. So I wasn't sure what was happening. All that being said, I did think he played well on Saturday, and I did think that was something that was very positive. Tro, seeing his aggressiveness, he's one of these guys that defensive linemen hate because they like to play to the echo of the whistle, and they could they get on your nerves a little bit, and then they put their hands up like they weren't doing anything the whole time. As a D lineman, I hate it. As a Gamecock, that's the guy that you want blocking for you, because that is somebody that is going to set a tone as far as what offensive linemen should be. They're being aggressive. So I thought the offensive line are improving. I do feel, if I was to say, based on the conversation that I just had about the running backs, I feel better about the offensive linemen improving than I do about the group of running backs improving. And also, and I keep saying this, I've said this on my show and I'll say it again, if you would have told me last year that the offensive line was going to be missing Casey Henry's presence, I would have been like, what do you mean? Because Casey Henry struggled mightily last year. And to his credit, he worked and he's gotten infinitely better this year. And hopefully he's going to be able to get back in healthy, because I think before he got hurt, he was playing the best out of anybody on the O-line. And so that's major props to him, because he has improved greatly than what he was last year.
Oh, fair enough. Hey, that's why I bring you on. All right. I don't think when you were at Carolina, I'm pretty sure you never played in Baton Rouge. Did you? You did?
I sure did, sir.
Oh, 2003?
No, we played them in 2003. That was at home. I believe we went down there in 01.
01?
I think so. No, or 02. It was 02.
02? 02.
Yep.
All right. So what was that experience like? And from a communication, I know you played on the defensive line, but when you're playing at night in an environment like that, you go back a few weeks, we were talking about communication issues up front and things of that nature. How do you think the Gamecocks will handle that? Like, what is the secret sauce to being able to communicate when 100,000 drunks are yelling at you?
That's the proper term. I mean, that place lives up to, at least when we went there, it lived up to everything that you thought about it. The lore, the wooden bleachers, seeing the yard lines in the 5 increments instead of 10, like all the cool stuff is like, man, this is really the cool place. I would say that's probably one of my most, treasured memories is being able to play down there. And I think in 02, when we played down there, we had got up on them early, and so the crowd was a little subdued. We gave them the ball. They ended up coming back, and you could feel sort of the raw of the crowd. I would say for offense, don't ever give them a chance to get going. Don't give them a chance to get going. And I said this earlier, the way I felt about our crowd on Saturday, obviously we're all going to show up. It's a night game in Willie B. We're all going to show up. But we all showed up a little bit hesitant. Like, what's going on here? We dropped 2. We're not feeling great about ourselves. We're here to support, but we need a reason to support. I think that's how the folks at LSU will be this weekend. They're going to show up, obviously. They're going to be loud. It's a night game, all of that. But if we can get out there and get ahead of them a little bit earlier, just give them a little bit of doubt, maybe you take that advantage out. That is the crowd.
Final one here. Nussmeier, I agree with Mike. I don't think he's healthy. I mean, I've seen these videos popping up. He's not putting any pressure on that front knee. It doesn't look good. I'm not clamoring that the South Carolina defensive line is trying to get in there and hurt him or something like that. But you got a quarterback who's got maybe some question marks when it comes to his health. What do you think the game plan will be there?
So the thing with Garrett Nussmeier, and I've probably the same clip that you see on social media. It's just the stark contrast between last year, him putting the ball in tight windows. I mean, even against us, that touchdown he threw against us, I would have probably drafted him off of that throw alone, right? Because it was. He hasn't made throws like that this year. So being able, obviously, you always talk about being able to put pressure on him and doing those types of things. But I think with Dylan Stewart, who, by the way, is not playing against a first-round draft pick this year, and they had 2 first-round dudes last year who were awesome. They're not playing on Saturday or next Saturday. So having those 2 dudes with the defensive ends, with the games that we just had, it might be a recipe for making, again, if he's uncomfortable because he's not necessarily as healthy as he needs to be, that might be something that can help us maybe bottle up Garrett Nussmeier, because that offense has been struggling.
We will certainly talk more about this next week as we head into the ball game. Gamecocks trying to continue to get healthier and stay healthy and make some progress as they hit the Bayou in a couple of Saturdays. But it's nice to have a week off during the season, isn't it, Preston? Get your body healed up.
Listen, it's nice to have a week off. It's even better to go into your bye week off a dub. Oh, man. Nobody wants to go into a bye week on a loss week. It is not fun at all. Not for fans, not for players, not for coaches. So it's a little bit lighter coming into the bye week for sure.
Ooh, you got that right. Have a great week, man. The host of the early game, 6 to 9 a.m., and don't hold it against him that he's from Summerville, South Carolina. We love him like we love any other South Carolinians around here. Thanks, buddy. You do a wonderful job.